All right, welcome in to Full Court Press, and Rob will likely join shortly, but we got to get going. There's a huge slate of games today, and right off the top, it's Veterans Day, so thank you to anyone that served, our good buddy Mark Zinno, and anyone else that has served our country. So the three of us, there's Rob. Let me just bring him in. There we go. So the three of us can sit here and talk about basketball games and handicap games. And we have the ability to do that. So happy the veteran, thank you to all that have served. I strolled up in my Navy zip up. I got to go down to Navy on Veterans Day weekend last year. That was very cool. They were also very good to me there on my visit. And we'll probably talk some Navy hoops at some point, but there is a lot of big games tonight, and we'll go co-main event here, if you will. I know there's a few big ones, but I want to start. The two games I want to start with are going to be Kentucky-Louisville and Texas Tech-Illinois. I think those are kind of the two biggest on the slate. So let's start Kentucky-Louisville. I'm going to go to Brian Power first. Man, they big rivalry game. They moved it up to a little bit earlier in the season. I feel like they used to play this when like students weren't around. In like
close to Christmas. Yeah, I remember watching this game with my father-in-law a few times, which means it would have been around a holiday of some sort. So yeah.
So Brian, this game is at the KFC Yum Center, something that is no longer on my diet after this weekend. I had to clean it up, but the importance of that is Louisville getting a big home game here. Kids on campus, should be an intense environment. Likely baked into the number a little bit, though. So kick me off. Kentucky-Louisville, how you see this rivalry?
Yeah, KFC Yum with the exclamation point, like Jeb Bush's failed presidential campaign. But that's a different story for a different day. I don't want to bury the lead, everybody. I'm sure people are going to hop in the comment section and mention it. So I do want to note, yes, I'm very sorry to anyone who was on board last night. My 5% NFL play, the Green Bay Packers. You need more than 7 points, gang. So sorry about that. Anyone who followed, we'll get it back here tonight and moving forward. And in college hoops, I think you mentioned Trigg. It's a great slate. So let's hit it off with a game that I'm going to be talking about on Wager Talk today. I'll give you kind of a Cliff Notes version of the preview I'm going to give on that show. But you mentioned it's an earlier meeting. They're meeting earlier in the season than normal. It's the first time Kentucky and Louisville have played both as ranked teams since 2019. So it's a really big deal tonight, guys. Kentucky's won 8 of the previous 10 meetings. Of course, more pertinent for our discussion here, being that we are a betting show. Wildcats 7-2-1 against the number in those last 10 games. Last year, they failed to cover, won only by 8 as 10-point favorites. Kentucky really shot the lights out, guys. If you remember, 58% overall, to be exact, 52% from 3. They were last year against Louisville. And Lamont Butler did not miss a single field goal attempt in that game, finished with 33 points. Of course, that was in Lexington, not the KFC Yum Center in Louisville. This is the first true road game for Kentucky. Wildcats have smashed their first 2 games. It's hard to learn a lot. We've talked about that when you're a big favorite, you roll as expected. I don't think a lot you can pull. Kentucky's a team that's scored 100 points, 100 or more, 6 times last season. No Trent Noah for Valpo. I don't know how much that's going to factor into your guys' handicap. He tweaked his ankle in the opener. I can tell you, this is a Wildcats team with 7 guys averaging in double figures so far. So 1 guy being out, probably not the end of the world if he can't play. Also, Mark Pope is coaching tonight. There was some fake news on the internet. I don't know if you guys caught this. Somebody tried spreading a nasty rumor that because of jury duty, Mark Pope would not be coaching tonight. Mark Pope has, in fact, been called for jury duty. But guess what, guys? The state of Kentucky is going to let him coach tonight. So people who make up fake things like that should just be physically assaulted, in my opinion. That's just my take, though. I don't know why you would go on the internet and lie on purpose. But Louisville, I think there's a lot to like, guys. I don't know what you think. This is a team that's shooting 72% from 2-point range so far. Now, that was against Jackson State and South Carolina State. We understand that. But I think the Cardinals here, I know Ken Palm has Kentucky as its top-rated team so far. I really respect the work Ken Pomeroy has done, gang. But I actually think Louisville's the better team, and you guys can talk. I'll leave the Louisville side, I guess, open to you guys here. I've talked long enough. But, Hadley, he missed the last game due to being in concussion protocol. Pryor, though, returned from an ACL that kept him out of action for a year. I just think, the market seems to agree with my assessment that Louisville's the play here. I've seen some sharper books at 5, at least. I did a few minutes before I logged on here to go live. And meanwhile, you think the public's probably going to be enamored with the higher ranked team getting points, that being Kentucky in this situation. But I don't know. I'm going to respectfully disagree with Kentucky being number 1 in Ken Palm. I think Louisville's better. I would lay it.
Yeah, Brian, I would, those who got to 3.5 early, again, I think I'm talking weird here. It doesn't sound right to me, but if you can hear me, I'm going to keep going.
You're okay.
Yeah, you sound good to us. Yeah.
The number now 5.5, but the total is what's gone crazy, right? An 8-point move on this total. Upward, obviously, we talked the other day about Pat Kelsey. He wants to go, go, go. Mark Pope wants to go, go, go. I understand it. I don't know when it gets to be too high, but for my taste, it's probably too high right now where the total is concerned. A couple of things here. Brian, you hit on them. A couple of injury tidbits to clean up for this one. Prior, we'll see. The word from Pat Kelsey was he's hopeful he can go tonight. But if you look preseason, there are a lot of projections for Kentucky's backcourt being top 10 in the country. And I'll just throw a vote in here for Louisville's talent at backcourt, right? Mikel Brown, 5-star prospect, another one of these kids that's projected lottery pick NBA. They go out and they grab 2 3-point marksmen out of the portal. Isaac McNeely from Virginia, Ryan Conwell from Xavier. Both guys have shot it at 41% or better so far this season. Connie Ruths has turned into a sophomore sensation, leading scorer for the team so far. They seem to have all the pieces here, Louisville, in my estimation. You're right, Brian. For the first 2 games, each side played 2 very, very, bottom feeder style clubs. So it's hard to say. I mean, I did have Kentucky team total as part of our parlay last week. It did get over. They scored 107, but Louisville's shown they can get to 100 as well. My thoughts on the side are this is a triple revenge spot for Louisville. I know, Brian, you quoted ATS numbers over the last 10 years or 7-2 last 9, whatever. To Pat Kelsey, all that matters here is they got to win one. This is one of those like Ohio State, Michigan in football, Louisville, Kentucky in basketball. Same thing. You come in, second-year head coach. He did a good rebuild job last year. It's time to win one here. I think they can. I'm just not sure it can be by more than 5.5 at this point. I would have preferred the lower number. Obviously, it's not a difficult thing to say. We're not, dropping any huge knowledge on anybody. The jump from 3.5 to 5.5 becomes pretty large. Now you have to win by couple of triples or 3 buckets. It's tough to do. Both teams, like I say, the backcourt matchup should be really, really good here. I think it's decided in the front court and maybe by turnovers, guys. And turnover numbers that I looked at early, it seems to me Louisville might be able to cause a little bit of trouble for Kentucky as far as that's concerned, and maybe points off turnovers just end up deciding it. But I'm on the fence here. I think the number for me sidewise is gone. I would have taken Louisville at 3.5 opener. And where total is concerned, I think that's gone too. Now you're asking for 175, 176. It could turn into a little bit of a free throw fest that late in the game, which always helps a total. But I'm going to lay off side and total here.
So I'll just quickly address. So first of all, thank you, Garth, for the donation. And you can also just go to the website and it's $5 Tuesday. So $5 goes a long way. A wager talk today. Everyone's going to have $5 plays up. We also have, I saw they put a full court special up, which is like 3 days of college hoops. I think it's like similar to the Weekend Warrior football special, which like I've already got 4 plays locked in for college basketball today. This is like, I went 2-0 last night and I decided the foot is going on the gas. We've got a week or so of data and I'm starting to trust like my reads and my numbers a little bit more than I did week 1. So 4 plays up for me already, all 3%ers. They will all probably more. I'm probably going to add other things, but Garth, I'm just going to specifically answer your question right now. So for me, I agree with these guys. The number is gone in both on the side and the total, in my opinion. I see you're asking about the under. Now, I don't want to commit to an under full game or an under 34.5, even though I do think that's probably where the value is. But I think there is going to be a boatload of 3-point shots in this game from both sides, especially from Louisville, who tends to, Pat Kelsey, Louisville tends to like to really shoot the three. And especially when they're when they're at their home gym, they've got the crowd on their side. I think they're more likely to do it. So what do we know about teams or about a game that's going to have a lot of 3-point shots? We know that there's likely, like, even if you shoot the lights out, what are you hitting? Like 40, 50% maybe at most. I mean, if you have a game where you shoot 60, 70% from three, that's a total outlier. So if I was going to try to bet an under in this game, I think I would do it after a hot stretch from three and just hope, because I think they're going to take a lot of threes, and I'd try to buy right before that, like, lull of, like, okay, well, now they've missed 4 or 5 in a row, and then you get your look, because that's the only way I see a scoring drought here in this game is few possessions where there's a couple of, missed threes and suddenly you've got a minute or two without scoring. There's going to be a lot of shots, a lot of possessions, which is why I don't want to commit to a total and a half or the full game. But if you can buy in at a good time, at a good number, there will likely be a lull at some point, and you just got to try to pick out where it is. Hopefully that helped. We're going to move it along. Second sort of feature game that we're going to go to, and then it's going to be a total free-for-all. So jump in the comments. Let us know what you want to hear about, and we'll get to as many as we can. But the second game, I want to give the full treatment, and I'll go to Brian Power first. Texas Tech, Illinois is going to be a tremendous game. Illinois, unfortunately, a couple of injuries that puts them in a little bit of tougher spot. But Brian, my first thing was like, well, I really like this Texas Tech team, but I feel like the books maybe got the injuries baked into the number here a little bit. That being said, should still be a tremendous game, and Texas Tech might actually be fully healthy. So how are you seeing this one? Red Raiders, Illini.
Yeah, interesting. I really like Illinois. Trigg, I'll talk a little bit about them, what they've done. They may, they've, again, similar to our last game that we talked about, the Louisville-Kentucky game. You have to take some of these numbers with a grain of salt given the level of competition. But offensively, Illinois, they make 17 threes in the opener against Jackson State. Then what do they do last Friday against Florida Gulf Coast? They attack the rim at will. Both games, they score 113 points. And here's a crazy number for you. Again, maybe take it with a grain of salt because of the level of opposition. But in their first 2 games, the Illini had a 112-49 rebounding edge. That's no matter who you're playing. If you're playing a D1, against 2 D1 college basketball teams, that's impressive no matter what. Meanwhile, Texas Tech, they were dealing with injuries as well, Trigg. For the 4 guys were out in the season opener against Lindenwood. Of course, didn't matter. Still win that one by 38. JT Toppin, he comes back Friday against Sam Houston, goes for 31 and 14. Lawan Watts, he returned. Keep an eye on Donovan Atwell, 6-3. You talk about eye-popping numbers. How about 6 made threes each of the first 2 games? But, Illinois, I don't know. I'm high on I think Illinois is going to be one of the best teams in the country this year. Playing at home, I'm going to, I guess you have to debate how much the injuries matter, but I made this. I mean, this number, my raw power ratings, I have Illinois favored by more, obviously, than this, just on raw power ratings. And my initial lean was towards the Illinois side. So I'm interested to hear, the case for Texas Tech.
So I just want to follow up with what you're going to say, and then we'll go to Rob for his breakdown. My number, like, I understand why I saw a lot of the power ratings were very high in Illinois, but that's to me where it's like, you're not going to have Tomislav Ivicevic. Jesus. It's going to be a tough year with some of these names. I believe he's out for like the foreseeable future. I think that matters more in a matchup like this, where like Texas Tech's going to be able to do some things defensively that Illinois' opponents to this point have not. Petrovic is still, I think, coming back from like a hamstring thing, but he's probably going to play. And then there's at least one of their rotational pieces is out. So it's like, for me, I think that's baked into the number. So I think that's why, when you look at it's only 4 at home, I think full strength Illinois is more like 6.5 or 7. Ultimately, I think that's going to keep me off of this game because I feel like I'm not really getting out ahead of the injury sort of news. But on the Texas Tech side, we did see like what, pretty much their starters all together, at least for a little bit of last game. which is why I kind of lean Texas Tech. I think their defense is going to probably be it's going to match up well with Illinois. But to your point, Brian, I wasn't in a rush to fade Illinois here either, so I didn't bet it. And we'll kind of see. I'll bring Rob in to sort of hammer this one home, because that's about all I've got here.
Yeah, guys, a few points you made already that are, Adam, I'm like you. I have papers all over the place on this desk with notes. I don't read notes off the computer. I'm scattered all over the place here. But Illinois, they're referred to as the overseas retention team this year, brought everybody back and everybody from overseas. Now, the twins, Ivasic. I'm one of those guys that'll go to YouTube to make sure I get pronunciations right on these guys. And another one for Illinois that I had to make sure I was right on this morning was Ben Humrickhouse, a guy who came back this year, put on about 20, 25 pounds. Head coach Brad Underwood thinks he's going to be a huge piece of this team. But Illinois and Texas Tech are mirror images in that particular area. They both have their cores back here. To Brian's point about that 112-49 rebounding advantage held by Illinois so far this season, it was my first concern because I want to play Texas Tech in this game. Texas Tech was small last year comparatively, and they still made a deep run. They're so scrappy on the boards. In my estimation, JT Toppin's the best player on the floor.
Yes.
The point guard match here is going to be really, really good. I happen to like Christian Anderson from Texas Tech an awful lot, but on the Illinois side, Kylan Boswell, it's a great matchup. I guess they call them T and Z, the Ivasic brothers. T is out, Big Z is in, and he can stretch the floor, guys. He was 3 of 6 from 3-point range. So when you have a 7'2" guy that can actually drag you outside, it becomes increasingly difficult to hit the boards. But my overall opinion on this is simple. It's interesting to watch the evolution of head coach Grant McCasland. Once upon a time, he was the head coach of North Texas, running at the slowest tempo in the NCAA. Now, all of a sudden, he lets his horses loose. And I think for Texas Tech, even though Illinois prefers it as well, I think Texas Tech needs to get a little bit open floor here to get some easy buckets. Don't let that rim protection set up against them. I think they can handle it. I think they can get to the free throw line. We'll see if the whistles go the home team's way. It's always a concern. I would look Texas Tech plus the points here, simply based on the fact that they match up so Illinois' strengths. Other than the rebounding, I don't think they're better than Texas Tech. And for what it's worth, this is like an Elite Eight matchup being played here tonight on November 11th. So we'll get to learn a lot. I take into consideration the Illinois injuries a little bit. If they're at full strength, I don't know that I'd be thinking this way necessarily, but the line would probably be higher too. I'd like Texas Tech a little bit plus the 4.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm closer to, like, with the injuries factored in, I'm closer to 1 on the number here, but I haven't been able to bring myself to click it yet. So take that for, do what you will with that. If I loved it, it would already be in. Let's just put it that way. I'm gonna think, let that one marinate. See if it moves. I think if it moves, though, it's going toward. I think it's gonna get worse. I could see this going off like Tech plus 3.5, maybe even plus 3, as that the injuries sort of permeate through the market. But let's get. I want to go to a couple of. Sorry, Brian. Did you have a follow-up there? All right,
okay.
Let's go to. I want to go. So we got a couple of veterans in the chat that I want to recognize. First, Jay Buff. That's our guy. He, I know he served many years. So thank you for your service and thank you for your question, because I wanted to talk about this game anyway. So I'm going to go back to Rob. This is his conference. I do have an opinion here, but I'll let Rob kick it off. This is a very interesting game tonight. We have the Murray State Racers, who have very much looked the part early in the season. We got that great showcase game with them on opening night where they just blasted, I think it was Omaha. And I believe another cover for them on a big number over the weekend. And then we have the SMU Mustangs, who are, favored here, and I suppose rightfully so. But Rob, I thought that number was big, and I maybe have missed the number at this point. I know you're a Missouri Valley guy. This game is down in Texas at SMU. So talk to me, Murray State SMU, is that number looking too big to you as well?
It looked too big to me, Adam, in all honesty. Murray State's going, they never really changed their identity. Honestly, no matter who the head coach is there, and it hasn't been a swinging gate, but they've had a couple of different guys. No matter what, it's a team that's generally guard oriented. And it's a team that plays really good defense. And so when you have those two, the old saying, defense travels. SMU, to me, you're right that they should be. Obviously, they're the better team on paper. But to me, SMU is one of those teams where it's a little sporadic offensively, can be great, can be mediocre. And I don't know that the defense is always there. So when I saw 13.5 yesterday, and then, I was commenting with you guys earlier, we kind of lost the odd service for a while. And then this morning I see the downward movement to 10.5. So I'm not going to say that we lost the number here, Adam, because I think Murray State's got a built-in toughness about them that's capable of covering this type of number. I didn't play it, but I understand where you're going with it, because I think Murray State, this is not a venue. Again, and this happens at the end of the card tonight one more time. The Chattanooga to St. Mary's road trip is kind of one thing. When we take these mid-majors and try to place them in foreign spots, but to go to Dallas, Texas, and to play in SMU's atmosphere is not nearly as killer as something like out in St. Mary's. So I don't think Murray State's going to be phased. They've been there, done that. They've been part of big games for a long time. I think they've got the ability to match up. So I would still kind of lean that way. But of course, once again, we would have rather had the 13.5. And I think the smart guys picked off the better number.
And it's an interesting situation, guys, because it's the dog. They've covered the number both games. The favorite failed to cover the number in each of the first two games. So, that's where I think that also probably has a lot to do with how the market's reacted here as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Rob. I was very interested at 13. That number was kind of gone quickly. I obviously SMU is going to be a favorite in this game at home, but I'm not a big Andy Enfield guy when it comes to like in-game coaching. I typically find myself lower than the market on his teams. This Murray State team has been very impressive on the defensive end as well, just playing extremely hard. I think this is going to be, I've said this a couple of times, and I'll say it again. This is going to be a very good Missouri Valley Conference this year, and I think Murray State is going to be one of the teams that's near the top of that conference. So I made the number 9. It's down to 10.5. I certainly think Murray State can hang in this game. I think they can handle SMU's zone. So I have no reason to talk anyone off Murray State here other than I can't take a 10.5 when I could have had a 13. And that's just my personal sort of view on it. That's too big of like a chance to get middled. So you never know. Maybe try to grab this one in game, but all of my sort of data, my research, watching these two teams points to the Murray State side. Okay, let's get this one in here. I have an opinion on this one, then I'll go to BP to see if he's got anything to follow up, because this is an interesting game. Curtis, first of all, thank you for the donation and the question. Curtis says, could you do the FSU game? FSU team total over 79.5 looks good to me. And we'll get Rob's opinion on that as well. New coach Laux. I've liked what I've seen from Laux. I've liked what I've seen from this FSU team. Wants to play fast and shoot threes. Over 40% from 3-point on the year. So a couple things here. But this is a game another one that's on my sort of next line down of games I am very strongly considering. I think Florida State's better than anyone it sort of knows. Yeah, of course, new coach, transition year after Leonard Hamilton forever, and they sort of fell off. I think they're projected close to the bottom of the ACC, but I'm a little bit more, I would say, bullish on Florida State than I think the market is. And I mean, this is, I don't know if I want to like be on camera saying this just yet. But like, I just don't know if I buy the Fland Xavier Lee thing for Florida. And I'm almost willing to say that Florida is going to come nowhere near to what they were last year. That was what I was worried about, like proclaiming that and then having Florida just be just incredible and making me look stupid. I think Florida's pretty overvalued at this point. And then you talk about an opener of like 15.5 bet all the way up to 19.5. Curtis, I make the number 18.5 here with Florida State. And I've seen a lot of stuff I like from them so far. That makes me think that they're going to stay within this number. So again, strongly considering Florida State. Maybe it'll be my parlay leg, but I'm going to give you two the chance to talk me off of that. So Rob, I'll go to you first. Actually, you and I talked about Lee, Xavier Lee comes over from Princeton, maybe not being the best fit there in Florida. How are you sort of rating Florida to this point?
Well, the Arizona game was, I think me and Brian both called Arizona plus the points. I didn't know that they would win outright, but I thought the game would be played close. The game was played close. It's, here's what worries me about Florida State in this game, guys. A, they want to go fast. I don't know that I want to go fast with Florida. B, that Florida front court is going to dominate just about everybody they play. FSU doesn't match up in the front court here. I don't think Florida's bigs are veteran. Florida's bigs crash the boards. Florida's bigs can score. Florida's bigs can defend. We don't know that much about Florida State yet, except I wouldn't even say they've transformed styles, because under Leonard Hamilton, they played pretty quick like they're playing, but they've played a pair of SWAC teams. What do I read out of that? I'm not so sure, because the SWAC is a defenseless league for the most part until they play each other. Then, competition breeds sort of competitive games. But when they're out on the floor against a team like Florida State that wants to run, they're not going to compete. So for me, I would more or less choose to look at Florida team total in this game. Guys, I'm using odds logic right now to try and pull it up so I can make a real. Well, you know what? They're asking Florida to get to 100. So forget I even made that comment. But we're not going to. We're not going to bet teams to get to 100. Yeah. We like when they get there and they're like 89.5 or 90, but we're not going to bet teams to get to 100. The price, again, Adam, we're talking about 3 games straight here where the price move matters, I think. And I get these early college basketball lines year in and year out. Generally, they're pretty good. When the sharps get to these totals and move them the way they have, they're generally smart moves early on. They become a little iffy later. But right now, I wouldn't argue with the move towards Florida. I just wouldn't lay it at this price. I mean, you got to win by 20. I know it's a rivalry. Who's to say at the end of the game, FSU at that pace, the way they want to shoot threes, who's to say that they don't get a backdoor 3 or something? So I'm off the game, but that would be my concern, Adam. My concern would be schedule played by FSU, schedule played by Florida, and the bigs in this game. I just think Florida's bigs are that good.
So I think this number looks way too high. I would concur with you, Trigg, what you were saying there. My concern, though, for the Florida State side is this. Florida has not shot the 3 well at all. You brought up maybe, and we've all brought up, I think, going to the opener, did we like how the backcourt was going to mesh? But, that's the concern for Florida. What if Florida starts making threes? They were 6 for 32 from 3 in the last game, and they put up 1.3 points per possession against an overmatched team. I think that's that seems to be the common theme for today's show, right? That there's a lot of teams coming off. They whipped lesser opponents. Now they're, what do we take from that? Is that fool's gold or not? But that would, I guess, be my concern with backing Florida State. What if Florida has a decent night from 3? Because to Rob's point, Rob brought up the idea of, Florida could put points on the board. Okay, well, here's a team that averaged, 1.3 points per possession despite shooting 6 for 32 from 3. If those threes fall, my God, I mean, the sky would be the limit for that team offensively.
Yeah, I kind of ultimately listen, I had a chance to click 19.5. I didn't. It's got bet back down a little bit at this point. My number was 18.5. So even though I have a pretty strong opinion here, I didn't show enough value to make a bet. Just to go back to Curtis's original question, I don't dislike the Florida State team total over, because to Brian's point, if some of those threes start falling for Florida and they are down 15 to 20, my gut tells me that this team is going to play for louts. They've looked like, I caught some of Florida's opener. I think they played Alcorn State, but they were very engaged for 40 minutes. And I think if they are like that in this game, they will hit that team total of over. They'll get to 80, even if Florida does drop 100 plus, they'll still get to 80. So I think your read on over Florida State team total is a good one. I don't disagree with that. All right, we got to. So I've got a couple opinions here. I'll throw it to you guys first. I could probably talk about both of these games, but I know people are asking about this. We have a couple day games today. Dougie Fresh says, any insight into the afternoon games? That's going to be Iona and the Kangaroos, Brian, of Missouri, Kansas City. That is a home game for them. And then we've got LIU out in at Air Force, I believe, as a favorite. The Northeast Conference Long Island Sharks are favored against Air Force, just how far Air Force has fallen. So you guys you're both welcome to pass. It just means the folks are going to have to listen to me ramble a little bit more, but anything on either of those.
I'll tackle LIU Air Force. How about that? If that's okay, Rob, I'll tackle that one because, we've already mentioned on the show before collectively that it could be a very long season in Colorado Springs this year for Air Force. Obviously, this is a team that can't do anything in the transfer portal. They lose at home by 20 to Austin Peay. They're not shooting well at all from anywhere, including below 50% from the free throw line. This team that they're turning the ball over a lot as well. And they're playing, and this is a double whammy. When you're playing at one of the slowest tempos in the country and you've got a really high turnover rate, that just is a disaster, really. Now, it is it speaks volumes that LIU, even it would be a road favorite against anybody. I think that says more about the current state of Air Force.
Brian, they're taking money as we speak. It's up to 4.5.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. A team that's unaccustomed. And that's not a short bus trip either from Long Island to Colorado Springs, guys. That's, but you can't play I guess my professional take would be you can't take Air Force right now against anybody. Initially, I thought kind of Long Island money line when I marked this game down before we went live, before obviously the number moved. My initial thought was Long Island's going to win this basketball game, gang. Air Force, but their concern too. I think if I wrote this down, so maybe an under because I talked about Air Force's bad free throw shooting a moment ago, below 50% for the year. Long Island's missed 23 free throws in their first two games.
Yeah.
Always something to consider. Free throws shooting when you're betting a total.
Keith, I'm going to go to Rob. I just want to Keith says this is the third year they've played. Yeah. The first one I went to, it was at LIU. So Air Force came and played a Veterans Day day game down at LIU in Brooklyn. I went to that game. And then last year, LIU did go out and get them at Air Force. And they must have owed them 2 return games. Mm-hmm. And I made the number 3 and it's up to 4. I've got nothing else to say about this game, but I'll bring Rob in for his thoughts on either of these.
Yeah. And guys, that final was 63-54, 117 total in that LIU Air Force game last year. And those are a couple of the concerns that I would bring up here with LIU. With Rod Strickland, they just want to get up and down the floor really fast. Air Force wants to slow you down. So just by going back over last year's result, we see who controlled the tempo. Air Force controlled the tempo. LIU, it didn't get out of hand. It's played at altitude. You always wonder about these teams from the Northeast that want to run. Of course, last year, a little bit of adjustment to it, but altitude has its problems for a team like LIU as well. I kind of feel like there's a way Air Force can stay within 4.5 here. It's been a heck of a early season, 8 days for LIU. Go to Notre Dame, play IU, Indianapolis, where that's the number 1 pace team in the country. So that style's fit for LIU. This style isn't. I did watch Air Force because I played Belmont against them. Again, it was part of our parlay last week. Belmont hung on. Lay 15.5, win by 16. It wasn't as easy as it looked. And at halftime, I believe it was only a 2-point Belmont lead. So I think Air Force has some redeeming qualities. I know when we covered that Belmont Air Force game, we talked about the personnel losses and how maybe they would be one of the worst teams in the nation when I watched them in that game, I didn't really see that. And Belmont's a better team than LIU, guys. And to be on the road at Belmont and play within a half point of the number, I'm not going to argue with the Sharps, who seem to think LIU is a solid play here. But I'm going to say I think there's a way Air Force hangs within this, what's now a 4.5 number.
Yeah, there certainly is. It's still, I mean, listen, it's still Joe Scott as the head coach. He's coached, I believe this is stint number 2, not nearly as successful as stint number 1 at Air Force, but he's going to run that Princeton offense. They're always, I've watched probably more Air Force basketball over the last few years, and I care to admit it's not the prettiest watch, but I will say that like when that Air Force offense clicks a little bit, it can be aesthetically pleasing. They'll hit a backdoor screen, and it's like the problem is they just don't have guys that can put the ball in the basket. But listen, LIU at points in time this year will drop a game to like a Mercyhurst or a Lemoyne. Like that, you still have to understand that LIU is probably not going to run the table in the Northeast Conference. Like they will undoubtedly like come up here to Syracuse and lose to like a Lemoyne and lose to like a Mercyhurst or lose to, like a Fairleigh Dickinson or something like that. Is Air Force better than those teams? Like probably, like even though it's, even though we're going to sit here and drag them, like if you were to throw Air Force in the Northeast Conference, they're probably one of the favorites to win it. Like that's what we're dealing with here. So even though LIU is a very good team, they've got to go out west. It's an earlier tip time, and it's just not a given that they're going to win. I would not lay 4.5. I just don't know if I have the stones to take the points with Air Force. Like that's the only way I would play it at this point, though. I'll quickly touch on the other game. So Iona is going to go out and play a true road game at 1 p.m. at Missouri, Kansas City. What I can tell you about Iona is they have a new head coach Dan Giroux, who comes, he's an NBA assistant from somewhere, I forget where, but he comes in and he's very much revamping like Iona basketball. I heard him talk a couple of times over the summer, and his words led me to believe that they were like in like a little bit of a year zero type scenario where it was like, let's rip this down and do things the right way. Like I almost felt like some of the things he said were like him sort of subtly being like, don't come at me if we lose our first couple of games, right? Like it was like, hey, this is going to take some time. Now, they came out and throttled Hofstra, just absolutely. I mean, it was like 22-4 in the first couple of minutes, but then I had to, they held on. It was a comfortable margin of victory, but I had to sort of like go back and say, they were home. Did they just like ride some insanely hot shooting to like a 20-point lead and it was good enough to like hold on? I would play against them here, especially at the current number. You're getting 4. I don't know enough about UMKC to like love my opinion on this team, but where I have the number, I made the number 1. So for what it's worth, I make Iona a 1-point favorite on the road here, and I'll probably give some thought to taking the 4 with UMKC. You could still get a 4.5 at FanDuel. I'm going to think about this one probably for the next hour or two, but there is some appeal to me for fading Iona. First road game, true road game, have to go out to the Midwest where they don't, I feel like they don't typically leave the Northeast very often. So it just seems like a weird spot. And I still go back to what Giroux said about like, hey, I want to like really do things my way, keep it simple for them early. That was a stunning result to me that they just mopped the floor with Hofstra. I thought Hofstra would win that game.
Kansas City might be bad defensively. I think it'd be my concern. The one thing that, I'm looking at, like teams were not taking a long time to shoot against them first 2 games, and they were making a lot of them. So, I don't know. To me, I don't know. Kansas City looks bad. I'll be honest with you. I was actually, when I figured people, because it was a day game, were going to ask about this, I actually kind of, leaned a little bit towards the Iona side. Transfer CJ Anthony, I think, is a player to watch there. So I don't know. I thought it was more of a play against Kansas City, I guess, than anything else. Trigg, I don't know. It seems it might be a long year on the defensive end for them, for the Roos.
And I just want to sort of mention, and then I'll go to Rob. I'm about to put you on the spot for your parlay leg, so just giving you a 30-second heads up, unless you want to chime into this game after I'm done here. But like for me, like I want to make it very clear, like it would be an Iona fade for me. Like, that's it. Like, and that's ultimately why it might miss my card. It's like, I don't feel like I have a good enough gauge about UMKC basketball at this point to like confidently bet this game. I just know that I'm going to look for a spot to fade Iona because of what I sort of heard coming into the season, and then them looking like the Monstars or whoever, like they look like the Space Jam team for the first 15 minutes or 10 minutes of that game. And I think they were able to just sort of ride that to a very impressive win that I'm not fully ready to buy. So UMKC or pass for me. Rob, I just realized like we've got about 20 minutes to go. So if you don't have your parlay leg figured out yet, don't worry about it. We can come back to you. But if you do, I want to give you the floor to get you in on the discussion here.
Yeah, you're going to love this one, Adam, because we've discussed it as long as 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, but I'm all in on Santa Barbara tonight. -9.5 against Sacramento State. We talked about Mike Bibby's team being somewhat of a, I don't know, a troublesome unit this year. They played 2 games against, again, non-board teams. Against Jessup, their largest win in a half was by 6 points. They won the first half by 4. They won the second half by 6. It's a team with 14 brand new players. Mike Bibby trying to round it all up. The Santa Barbara side, first of all, they're always good under Pasternak, but you add Aiden Mahaney from St. Mary's to this team. That's crazy good, a crazy good pickup for a team like Cal Santa Barbara, who's going to run the top 5 or 5 of the top 6 in that unit are all juniors and seniors. They're number 6 already in the nation in field goal efficiency, effective field goal percentage. So I just don't see any way they don't win by double digits here, Adam. It's not that excruciating of a road trip, and it's not a devastating venue to walk into the Hornets' nest in Sacramento State. So give me UC Santa Barbara minus what I think now is 9.5 because money's gotten to this. The opener was 7.5. I wouldn't be surprised if, it's a late game. It probably goes even higher. So lock in now, UC Santa Barbara minus 9.5.
Yeah, I think Shaq is involved with the program. I think his son, the one that was at Florida A&M, transferred there. There's some interesting players on the roster. My concern, and I think it is what you've already outlined, like Mike Bibby didn't really hire any like respectable assistants. It's like him who was coaching like high school basketball, and then like just a ragtag group of assistant coaches. Like I can't see how that works out unless they just have absolute ballers. But like I'm with you, Brian. I mean, I'll throw this out there. It's really not an actionable item, but you could get 2 teams out of the Big West this year. Like Irvine and UCSB both look to be like teams that like one of those teams could earn an at-large bid this year. So Rob, I can't put you off that.
I always feel that we say that every year about the Big West, like, oh, I'd love 2 teams to get in. And then, March rolls around and maybe one of them falters. I feel that that's not the first time we've had this collectively.
That's the NCAA's fault, though, because there should have been 2 last year. Irvine deserved to go last year along with UC San Diego, in my opinion.
Yes.
Brian, I'll go to you. Do you want to hit us with a little promo, and then maybe do you have your parlay leg?
I am actually dutifully putting my parlay leg together. Let's get the promo out first, though, because you mentioned it earlier, Trigg. I should have my mouse plugged in for the show. Much worse when I use the camera for that spot. But you talked about how, guys, if you've been using the Weekend Warrior Pass for football at wagertalk.com, that's been a great thing, right? You get 40 for 3 days of service. You get 40. It's $49. You get everyone's Saturday college football, or the handicapper of your choice, I should say. Saturday college football, Sunday NFL, and Monday Night Football is a bonus. Well, we're bringing now, in the same vein, the full court all access pass. Includes any 5% bet. Only $49 for a limited time. You get every basketball play from your handicapper of choice for 3 full days. That's NBA and college. $49 for every basketball play from your handicapper of choice for 3 days. That's on any of our pages right now. This play will not cost you a dime. It will be my portion of the parlay leg. I'm going to go. Didn't hit it last night, Trigg. High-scoring second half doomed us in the Kent State game. Kent State better from 3 than I anticipated this year, and that was what doomed me. But We're going to go back to another under, and it's going to be Morehead State-Clemson under. This total, the over is taking money here. And it's at 147.5 as I speak. I think there is now some value at pushing back on the market. Clemson has put up big point totals in its first two games, 88 and 97, but those were against New Hampshire and Gardner-Webb. Morehead State, guys, is a team that can clean up the glass defensively. I think they can limit second chances here. This is a game. I just think that this total move, this is one we've talked about in the first week plus of the show. Sometimes, hey, doesn't matter if you bet the game at 6 in the morning or 6 at night, you're cashing on these totals, whether you get the best or the worst number. This is one where I think it's heading in the wrong direction. I'm going under Morehead State Clemson for my portion of the parlay.
And can you just give me that number one more time?
147.5.
Morehead Clemson under 147.5. All right. If you were going to the game, I would say it's no brainer.
Yes.
But, we'll have to. Like, Brian, I was watching that Kent State Wilmington game last night, and I was like, in my head, I was like, if we were there, he'd find a way to kill this pace somehow and keep it under. I mean, I think you had like 5 points of CLV on the closing number on that one. Went off with 155. Which
sometimes I feel is always the kiss of death. I don't know. Like, I know a lot of people love to do a little dance when they have that. For me, I'm always like, oh no, because it did. I think it closed at 155.5. We gave it out at 160.5. So I was like, oh no.
All right, I'll give
Let me clarify real quick, Adam, just because I gave you a number of 9.5, which was the number when we came on the air in that Santa Barbara game. That number is currently 8.5.
All right, yeah, we haven't locked it in yet.
I don't know. Looking at the line movements, it changed about 55 minutes ago from 9.5, bet all the way up to 10, and then some take back now at 8.5.
Wow, they're betting.
I mean, not possible for anyone to bet the parlay yet because they don't know the third leg. So we'll go. We've been sort of going with like what it is at the end of the show, and so 8.5 is good there. We've got 147.5 on the Morehead Clemson under, and I will. So we've got 13 minutes of the show left. I will wrap it up.
Can I just jump in real quick, Trigg? Because this is crazy. This Louisville, people are betting Louisville like they know the final score right now. This number's up to 6.5 at this point.
That's insane. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. It's been like that for a little bit. You have to think. I mean, you have to think someone comes in and takes Kentucky at some point. But
maybe Mark Pope is doing jury duty. I don't know.
That is. I saw that the guy that keeps breaking those like fake stories, has like SUNY Cortland alum in his bio, which I think is funny. That's where Mallory went to undergrad, and that's where it's like very close to where he free school up here in Central New York. So I got a good laugh at that. I'm gonna close the parlay out. So Brian, sometimes people are like, Trigg, you're out at games. You're better served behind the computer screen for us. We don't know why you're going all over. To all these different games. What does that really do? And so a couple things. One,
I didn't know people were saying that.
Every once in a while. One, I get to make some cool content. Two, I do enjoy going to basketball games and getting to see the different arenas, getting to experience like what a game is like at a Toledo as opposed to like a Bowling Green, as opposed to like going to a game like Brian and I went to on Saturday night, top 25 sold out, one of the sort of best venues in the country for college basketball at the Breslin Center. And I talked about this to Brian. We were in the car a lot together this weekend, so we had a lot of time to chat. I feel like I learned some very actionable stuff when I go to games like this. And so I'm going to give you one of my client plays tonight. And the breakdown is heavily like something that I feel like I picked up this weekend when Brian and I were in Toledo watching Toledo and Marshall. So 3% play for me. It's one of my client plays today. I took the Toledo Rockets plus 5.5. And the reason that I like Toledo to bounce back here is I think they are finally going to get to see something other than a really good zone defense. So the first two games of the year, they played South Alabama and they played Marshall. And, Brian and I got to go to this little sort of we got to hear the Todd father, Todd Kowalczyk,
Yes.
their head coach, sort of address some of the season ticket holders and stuff and talk about the game before the game. I sort of listened to some of his post-game comments as well after the fact. And it sounds to me like they really would love to see something other than a zone. And even if Wright State can put them in any sort of zone, Craig Sargent is going to make them a bet. He's really emphasizing defense for Wright State this year. And I do like that Wright State team, but there is no way. So one of two things is going to happen here. Either they're going to go zone, Wright State, and it's going to be worse than the South Alabama zone that's very good, or Marshall's zone, which is now anchored by the 7'4" Matthew Van Komen, which is like a very unique scenario. How many teams are you going to find in the country that can anchor a zone with a 7'4" rim protector, who's also become a very, very good shot blocker, very, very good rebounder? Like, he kind of is the total package at this level. So either Wright State is going to try to play zone and not do it as well as the other two teams, or they're going to go with, which is more their traditional defense, man-to-man. And I think Toledo will just be thanking the heavens that they're finally going to see some man-to-man, which I think they match up better again. So you've got Toledo coming in 0-2, two losses on their home court, which is like probably a little uncharacteristic. I don't think this is going to be a great Toledo team. I think they're a middling team in the MAC this year. But you mean to tell me I can get 5.5 points? Brian and I have not been to the Nutter Center yet, but I don't think there's going to be like some sort of crazy Nutter Center atmosphere tonight for this game. So not going to give them a huge home court. I see a lot of value in Toledo at 5.5 in a game that I think they can win. And that is a 3% play for me. And maybe one I'll even upgrade. And if I do, I'll, I guess you have to be one of my clients to know if I upgrade it or not to a 4, but I'm thinking about it. And I really like the Rockets plus 5.5. So that will close out the parlay.
I remember
Brian, anything.
I remember you saying that. I remember. It's funny. I had a little bit of a chuckle. I don't know if the people watching could see me chuckle, but I chuckled internally there because I remember you talking about that on the way home, that Toledo, how they needed to get away from the opponents playing zone. So this was something that everybody, you talk about, Trigg mentioned how he takes things away from these live experiences. This is something Trigg was talking about on Sunday. So he's definitely
Brian. I mean, we were just remember the second half of that Marshall game. Marshall made
a couple of
tweaks. I thought I didn't know if you snuck off into the locker room. We had some access and because that Marshall defense was outstanding in the second half. Toledo just went from a comfortable first half lead to getting completely blown out of their own gym. Marshall just locked them down.
I feel with a couple minutes left, Toledo only had 15 points in the second half.
Yes.
Right. I remember remarking that because they were up 40-30 at half. And I was like, they were at 55. And I turned to you, I said, oh my God, they scored 15 points in this half.
Yeah, it was a great defensive effort in the second half from Marshall. And I really think they just, they have the ability to tweak that zone with the 7'4" center. You're not going to get that out of Wright State tonight. So just a lot of ways Toledo can have a much better game than they had the first couple games where they were just up against it from a style standpoint. Let's see, Rob, you know what? On the way out, we got to talk Creighton-Gonzaga for a minute. It's another big game, another top 25 matchup. Brian and I were at dinner trying to watch some of this game. And I was I think I watched 2 possessions on my phone. I was like, don't even bother asking them to change it. This game's over. Gonzaga got anything they wanted at the rim. It was a no contest. Gut tells me maybe something similar happens tonight. What do you think, Rob?
Well, the front court's elite, right? You got Graham Ike, Braden Huff. You had on time Grant Foster, who gave him 22 minutes the other night. So that front court's elite. Creighton's going to have to try and match up with it. Obviously, Creighton's not a gelled product yet, Adam, but you have to, the pair of Iowa transfers, right? Dixon Freeman. Owen Freeman gives them 3 6'10s in this game, which should be able to compete. Owen Freeman is a guy that's not just, and correct me, he was hurt a lot of last year for Iowa, and Iowa went straight downhill when Owen Freeman got hurt. not that they're good defensively, but they were even worse defensively. But Owen Freeman's a guy that is almost like a point center where you can feed him the ball at the foul line. He can make plays out of that, assist-wise, shot-wise, off the bounce-wise. So I think Creighton's got abilities here. Dix is a knockdown three-point shooter. They've got a couple of three-point shooters. It may take time for them to develop, but they've got pieces here that could give Gonzaga a problem for a while. The problem for me is I absolutely feel like there's a run tonight out of Gonzaga where it just becomes, you lose touch, so to speak, with them. They put together one of those 5-minute spurts where they go 16-2 or something like that opens the game up, and then Creighton just can't. They have to go bombs away to try and catch up, and it doesn't work out. So for me, I think in summary, real quick here, Creighton's a team I'll have my eye on to get better as the season goes on, because I think the parts are good. But right now, Gonzaga is certainly the well-oiled machine. And like you say, interior-wise, they do cause a problem for anybody, even if you do have 3 6'10s on your team.
Yeah, we talked about numbers on the move. I didn't think knowing we were going to be talking about this game today, I didn't think I would have any interest in the Creighton side. Gonzaga is a team that I have projected for the most wins, regular season wins in the country this year. That should be no surprise year in, year out. They're in that discussion. But, then you wake up Tuesday morning, you see where the line's at, how it's moved, and you're like, oh, man, I kind of want to punch back a little bit of this. And it looks like some people are, because correct me if I'm wrong, about an hour ago, I thought I saw this at like 13, and now it's back down to 11.5. Was that some sort of sunshine daydream, guys, that I was having, or no? Because I thought
it was moving.
Okay.
I mean, Gonzaga was taking
a
ton of money. So, you're probably right.
Now, here's the thing with Creighton. I talked to our good friend, Trigg, our good friend Clint, after the Creighton-South Dakota game. His feeling that Creighton might really struggle on the glass once they get into the teeth of Big East play. And Rob brought up the front court of Gonzaga. That tells me, I just saw someone pop in the chat that the front court for Gonzaga could be the major problem in this game. I'm wondering, as I listen to Rob break down the game and saying Creighton can keep this close for a while. Is this one of those situations where if they're not covering early, they're not covering late, and perhaps you consider Creighton first half? Because, I don't envision, game script wise, they get down big and then fight their way back into the number. To me, if Creighton covers this number, it's going to be with a solid first 20 minutes. Rob mentioned Freeman. McDermott said, he basically admitted in his own words, quote, we have a lot of work to do with this team, obviously, but there are some pieces I think we can work with. Rob mentioned Freeman. He mentioned Dix. Creighton's got, they lose Kalkbrenner, but maybe they've got some depth. 9 guys are averaging 14 minutes per game. So I don't know. I think maybe if you're interested in the Creighton side, first half might be an interesting angle. What is that number here? 6.5, more than 2 possessions. I actually don't hate that.
I mean, listen, no question Creighton's rim defense takes a hit with no Kalkbrenner. I thought the number was too high as well. Like I actually only made this Creighton plus 5.5. I just very much disagree with my number right there. Because so a couple things that sort of put me off of this, even showing like a little bit of value on the number. When does Gonzaga get a team like this to come in the kennel anymore? It's usually the ranked team that comes to play them is typically St. Mary's. It's because it's a conference game, or like, they'll get like maybe like another West Coast, like, they'll maybe get a Washington State to come in, or like, someone like that. It's typically not a Big East team that's also in the top 25. So it's going to be a crazy atmosphere tonight. And then to go back to your point, our buddy Clint was probably watching that game with a South Dakota lens, if you will. That's where he's from. That's the program he knows extremely well. South Dakota kind of crushed them on the glass in that game. I think they had like over 20 offensive rebounds, and I'm pretty sure South Dakota is still down their best player or one of their best players, and they were very competitive in that game with Creighton. So I have no interest in Creighton for that reason, but also can't lay a crazy number with Gonzaga. All right, we have hit the finish line. On the way out, I'll let you know that we have a great college basketball special. It's the full court special, 3 days. It's the same price as the Weekend Warrior, and you'll probably get a huge volume from whoever you choose, since there's so many games right now. The parlay, plus 14.22 units, or for every dollar risked, if you're betting these the same, up $14.22. A tremendous start to the season. Today we have Rob Vino on UC Santa Barbara minus 8.5. I'm going to go with Toledo plus 5.5. And then Brian Power is going to close it out with a total Morehead State-Clemson under 147.5. 6-1 odds. That's your three-teamer today. It's $5 Tuesday, so check everyone's page. We'll all have a play up for $5 at some point. And we'll see you guys in the morning for more Full Court Press. Have a great day, everybody.